Just a quick review of the tick shifter. Everybody's looking at these. I've had mine in the car for about 8 weeks now. I was one of the first to have it delivered. I have no complaints. It runs strong. It runs hard. It is a solid option. It definitely is on par with MGW. I would never give money to B&M, for example, but MGW has established themselves as the target. So Tick comes to the market kind of late with a new product, which is brave. Here's their tick shifter. You all know it has the bar for neutral assembly, so that it aligns to the base, so you don't have to play fiddles with the two bolts that mount to the torque tube underneath here to get it centered. So you hit every gear. That's a smart thing. One of my favorite parts is the slightly canted. Let's say that 15-degree cant, 20-degree cant backwards. That's an excellent piece. I wasn't sure if that was going to be notable or not at all. I do like that in the end. Here's my misaligned MGW shift knob on there. I just put it on as tight as I could get so it doesn't shift off. But here's the tick shifter. Now it works perfectly into each gear. The way it feels, like how you get a feel in your head what's in the mechanism. I don't know what's in the mechanism. I'll find out. It feels, think of it as like a Pez shape, kind of an elongated rectangle with rounded edges. That's just how it feels in my head, because it only goes into its gear. There's not much travel. You're not going to miss it. It's no problem. It goes right where it's supposed to. That's what you want. If you're going to slam your car around, that's great. Now, for me, I feel like here's the play. Not much play. It's very firm. And light pressure, and then it's in gear. Now, I have a 120,000 mile transmission. Maybe it's aging out, so results may vary, right? But here's quick. But when you're driving the car, it's not quite that quick, and it is definitely a palm shifter. Like you're pushing. It's not light, right? So moving quick, it works fine. If you're going to slam it, that's fine. I like to, maybe move quick through my gears. I have a lightweight flywheel. I have a McLeod RST, so I'm used to just click, click, click like that while you're driving. This one, while it's able to do that here in neutral, I'm just parked here, of course. It's not that confident when the car is in motion. And again, that might be just my 120,000 mile transmission. It's had 10 pounds of boost pushing it for a while, and now it's back to NA. But yeah, solid shifter. I would never flinch at this. They have a solid product, and they honor and they warranty it. It does have a lifetime warranty per Chris, so you'll see online representing their product. This one here, you'll see, has a torn boot. The boot tore up to that second ring. It started passing some lubricant there, some grease. And I spoke to them at the company, and apparently it's the first one that's had that issue. And I think it's just because, like when you park it, you leave it forward or something, and it probably just tore. But I've got maybe 2,000 miles on mine now. But I got a replacement in the mail within like 4 or 5 days, and that's not any critical loss of grease or anything. So it's a solid piece. I do suggest it. It's very strong, but I'm going to remove it, to replace that piece, but also because I want to compare. I bought this because I want to have and keep the better shifter for my other car. This is my 99 Coupe. I've got it all apart for this piece, and I still need to chase some leak. It's raining, and thankfully there's no rain coming in. I've got the leaks pretty well chased, but I'm not putting the carpet in until I know it'll survive a downpour. So yeah, I put like all new weather stripping. Not that matters. All the way around the hoop and around the windshield. But my other car is the Z06. It's got a 402. It's going to have 14 pounds of boost. It's a little bit more serious car. I've loved my MGW, and it has a Tmod shift box on it, but we're going to swap that out because I haven't driven that in about 2 years. That shifter's been in the other car on the rack. I'm going to put that in this one again and see how it compares. So I'll put a couple weeks on it and go from there. And here's the tick. Love it. Might end up keeping it, but whichever one builds the most faith in me for the way I drive. Like this to me is a great drag shift or drag race shifter, because you're just gonna like slam, slam, slam. Perfect. But if you're just kind of like more like running through the hills, daintily shifting, or more daintily shifting, like you're just light or playing with the gears, like, oh, I want to downshift, I want to upshift quick, while it's moving here quickly in neutral, when it's running, and maybe it's a synchro thing, maybe my T56 is aging, maybe it's got, attention that it needs. I am going to change the fluid out because it's due. But this is heavier. Like I said, the image in my head is like a Pez piece. It also feels like when you're coming into gear, like there's almost like a slight barrier that keeps it from going in, then like it takes a little bit of like initial pressure and then clicks over. For most of us, that's fine. Again, for drag racing, perfect. You're not gonna, I've never missed a gear in this shifter. It's great. But I think that for running through the hills, I'd probably want something lighter, that kind of thing. But that's just my impression. So I'll take this out. This is the video for now. And when I get the MGW in and a little bit of chance to compare, I'll put that up too. Take care. Now, some differences here. I'm not a YouTuber, so I'm just going to talk. So this is the MGW shifter. This is an older one. You see it's got the dual balance weight gold section. Even the newer version only has, I think this shaft is mounted off the rear, or then you have the flat stick, which is different. I don't know what internal differences exist or how this MGW would compare to newer ones. I don't. Now this is in the Z06. The project's not done. This is, if anybody follows the Oklahoma Z on the Corvette forum, that's this car, in pieces. But here's the shifter. Now, differences here. It's not apples to oranges with the car out front. This has a modified shift linkage, so the U-joints were replaced for steering joints, much firmer. There's like no slop with those. And this is also attached to a 6060, not a T56. So differences. And that 6060 is currently dry, so I'm not going to abuse shifting here too much. But here's the MGW, same knob, just transferred it over. This one's, all mounted up and ready. Now, this one, that's 4 gears that quick. Very easy, very light. There is some pressure, like you can feel almost like a bar spring there pushing against it. It wants to come back to 0. But once you're in, you're in. And while I am palming it, I don't have to palm it per se. I don't have to like slam it. And also you have to wonder, this one has many thousands of miles. I drive my cars, they're not garage princesses, unlike this one, of course, being on the lift right now. But you would think, maybe it's worn in, but this is just always the way it's been. So it shifts that quick and easy. It is lighter by far. It is also lower. This feels maybe, from where I'm sitting, maybe a ½ inch lower, if that. And notice that it's straight up, whereas the other one has the canted angle, so it comes back 15 degrees. Maybe the center would be about here. Generalities maybe ½ inch different. First, second, third, fourth, no problem. Not even thinking. And I haven't driven this. This isn't something that my hand is familiar to. I haven't used this in 2 or 3 years since I took it out of the daily to put in here, thinking that I would just rebuild the engine and be gone. That project has expanded. So 1, 2, 3, 4, no problem. Light, quick. I'm using more. I can use like my fingertips to do that, not having to use like the meat of the palm or a death grip to do that. So there's the MGW, and I have a suspicion that I might prefer this. I do like and prefer the tick where it has the reverse angle slightly. That does fit the hand almost better, or at least that impressed me. So initial perspective, maybe this one has an edge on quick shifting. That may be the case, but we'll see. I mean, I'm not going to draw that conclusion until I get it in the other car and put some miles on it. And for apples to apples, I'll put the other tick shifter in here, slap the head on here, and just see if it has the same difference. Because again, you're not having to deal with synchros, you're not having to deal with the engine rev matching anything. It's easy just to slap around. But this one is quick. Now, the only thing I can feel there, I probably have to adjust my angles with my hand. I'm used to the canted piece with a different location on the tick. When I was going for 3, I can feel I'm pushing almost for that bar, if you will, between 5. But that's quick and easy. So that right there is definitely lighter, right off the bat. And this is the old one. This is an old MGW shifter. Underneath is a TMODcustoms box. So that does make shifter to shifter apples to apples in the sense that the Tick offers their own box, you know, their own bearings and whatnot, and that's what is done here. Tmod does the base with his own bearings. Now that does, if you think that's not a mod you need, it actually is. I just threw money at it because, hey, it's a new product a couple years ago. For 140 bucks, let's just see. And to be honest, it was notable compared to the factory shifter. The factory shifter was worn out. You don't notice it, you don't feel it, but then you put this in, you're like, oh, hey, that's worlds different. So for $150 or whatever he's charging now, I think that's worthwhile. So apples to apples, it's a shifter with a base, and the other one's a shifter with a base. This one's lighter. It's also lower. So you would think if it being a little lower, it would take more force, and there's a lot less pressure needed to put through. But that might also be the difference between an old T56 and a fresh Stage 3 Texas Drivetrain 6060. So I don't know. We'll put the other one on here, compare, go from there. And we're back. So here's the MGW removed next to the Tick. You can see a very big difference in the size of, I guess you'd call that the bearing or the fitting that Tmod puts on. You know, this being the Tmod base and this being the Tick base. They feel pretty good either way. A lot of what you'll find with the factory ones is that the bearing here, or the kind of seal that's on the shaft, will fail. That's how it is on my factory one that I usually run in the Coupe. But here we have the first apples to apples comparison, and I tightened this down. I ran it a couple of times. It's much lighter, and here again, this is a competition 60/60. It's not, doesn't have fluid in it, so I'm not like trying to shift too much. Very light, very easy comparatively. You know, so there's a lot less weight in it. I can start to use my fingers with it, but there's definitely kind of it has a little bit more sideways ease, which is good, I suppose. And you can definitely get it through gear quickly, but this does feel taller. And on this setup, you know, you can do it quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, so as long as your footwork is there, or if you have a, you know, no lift shift box, which I will, you can do some damage on the quarter mile for sure. And certainly this is light enough where I wouldn't complain at all going through the hills kind of thing, like going for a weekend rip up into the mountains. Like, you know, I'm in Connecticut here, so we head up to, you know, Route 7, go up to New York, you know, the Massachusetts corner and back, or different roads down to the hills to the beach. But this works fine. And I didn't use the pillar mount. You know, I've done this so many times, you know, at least a dozen times, where as long as you get a positive connection to your shift linkage, then even the factory base has room where you can slide the base up or back to center your shifter. So as long as you kind of know, and visually I just kind of went by where this sat versus the gasket, which made that easy. But quick and easy, very light. However, it doesn't just slap it, like there's a little bit of more resistance. It still seems to be slightly heavier and a little bit more, I'll say, like, yeah, you can go back and forth, but it's a little bit more selective with how it fits into gear. Like I said, this is a definite, like a quick slam shifter. It's great. I think this is the ticket for drag racing, for sure. For me, that's just how I drive. You know, I definitely don't drive like this. But if you're in first, shift second, shift third, you wind it out, shift fourth. You know, it's certainly perfect. But in this case, and maybe again it's the different car, different seating angle. I've got Corbeau A4s in this one. My initial impression is that it seems to have just a little bit too much catch between gears compared to the other one. You can hear it, you can see it. Whereas the other one just clicked right in. So again, I think that if you want a positive, yes, I'm in first. Yes, I'm in second. Absolutely in third. Slam it in fourth. This is a hot ticket. If I was building something just go down the drag strip only, this would absolutely be it. Very high confidence. I haven't missed a shift ever with this thing. I like the fact that it's canted. That's very casual, comfortable in the car. But we'll have to put this one through a couple miles and just see how it compares. Because again, it's going to be on an aged T56. We'll see how it compares. You know, I'm not going to draw conclusions. I see some differences here, but again, this is a whole different setup. So we'll put this one back into use on the Coupe where it originated some years ago. Used to have 10 pounds of boost over there on a P1 kit. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, open conclusion. Solid products either way. I wouldn't throw either one of these girls out of bed, if you know what I mean. They are quality. The only one I'd like to compare extra, you know, people talk about the hints, and I'm sure that they're good. I haven't had enough motivation to try. But people who have a slightly different perspective on driving would be LG Motorsports. You know, and I'd like to see what theirs is, and I might just have to buy one at some point just to compare, because they're looking at, you know, confident, easy shifting. You know, is their mentality. They're racing. They don't want to worry about, you know, is this a drag shift gear or where is it sometimes, or have to like, oh wait, am I? Not that you're struggling at all. I don't mean to infer that. I just mean that in your head, there's more attention. There's a little bit of half second, like, am I definitely in gear? Am I definitely, okay, we're good, let the clutch out. You know, whereas over here, I've always just been done, and I know it, because you don't have that kind of hesitancy before it comes in. Maybe that's the weight of their spring. I don't know how this is built internally. Maybe I'll have to take a quick look if I have to replace the gasket later today. But as far as comparison, we'll leave it open. We'll see how this one does in the Coupe. That'll be next. And it's raining, so I'm not going to beat it up too much, but I'll take it for a cruise. Then I'll come back with ideas. And here's the final run for now. Here's the MGW with the modified box from Tmod back in the Coupe here. So lining it up, installing it, I noticed one thing difference between the factory box, this one being modified, and the tick box is that the basin kind of underneath the center section that would go between the two kind of housings, if you will, that the bolts go into. This body, the factory body, is narrower front to back, so I can take this entire shift box while I'm fishing for the linkage and kind of put it in there and shove it all the way forward in a space to play and get the linkage. The tick one, you don't have as much space. I'm a firm believer in zip ties, so I took a picture before, particularly with the tick, because they have like Delrin bushings which go under their actual housing. If you want to install those or then remove the shifter without losing them down in your tunnel, I put them first on the base of the shifter. I ran a zip tie through them and then put the bolt with the washer over it. So once I get the bolt with the washer starting to seat, you know, like 2/3 the way down, then I just clip the zip tie and away we go. And I do the same with the linkage, because it's a pain. You know, one person, you fish with the linkage, it drops down, it moves around. I just put one zip tie through the hole, lets you hold it up. You connect it to your shifter, lock down your shifter, adjust your forward and back. First lock this down, I guess. You clip the zip tie. I always clip the zip tie. I kind of play with it. You can watch on the shaft. There's usually like witness marks. You can kind of play, and of course not right now because it's installed. You can play back and forth and see how much travel there is when you have this locked down. So you find the center of that travel is usually my guide. Once I hold it to the center of the travel, then I lock this down. From there, now this, at least as far as the linkage is connected to it, is centered. Now to put this in a permanent centered position, typically what I do then is I just nudge this back and forth and move the shifter until this sits happily in a center position, not like slightly angled one way or the other. It's just neutral. And that's the way to do that for center front to back. And sometimes, depending on the car, linkage and or shifter, I've seen where you have to play a little bit, you know, and loosen it a bit, come back. And I mean, just a hair. You don't want it to come loose and then have to realign. But sometimes you want to go just left or right a hair. And then you're happiest with your gear. This one's very well centered right now. So here's the MGW. And of course, I missed my first angle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very smooth. Now where the tick, And again, this is a 120,000 mile T56 factory linkage connection here. Full hydraulics, full fluid in it, whereas the other car did not have fluid. It's running dry, and that's also a competition transmission. Intended to shift easily. Now this one, or at least shift correctly, with less chance of us drivers. We are the error. We are the problem with transmissions, not the transmissions. They themselves can hold like 800, 2,000 horsepower happily. It's how we handle them that F's them up. So here's the MGW. Now the tick would have pressure and then release. So it would have like pressure, release, pressure, release. This one has steady pressure throughout. And instead of very firm or narrow gate lanes, this one is very open. Now I can happily just kind of play through. I can just, okay, second, third, fourth, no problem. It does feel perhaps, and again, this is like the brain's interpretation of what the hand is doing, like how this feels when it's moving. The brain's interpretation is that this is a narrower, perhaps more round ball moving through the shift area. It has more room to get into gear, so you don't have to think click, am I in gear, did I get there, which in my head on the tick version is kind of there, whereas this one is just smoothly between. No issues. Now it's not as light as it is in the other car. Again, it's apples to oranges differences between the linkage, the shifter, and the transmission itself. But I'm gonna have to put some miles on this now. It hasn't been in this car for about 3 years. I just had a factory piece which I cut about an inch off of and just had a handle on, factory style handle actually. So I'll put some miles on this and I'll see which I prefer. Where my preference falls. I definitely have faith in both products. They're good. They're solid. They go right into gear. You have a shorter, distance between, height. Your factory height might be like up here. Now we're a good 2 inches down. They are heavier because you have, less distance. You have less leverage. When they're taller, you're able to just slap because it takes less pressure. This definitely does take more pressure than factory. But we'll see how it goes. So I'll leave it as an open discussion so far because I have nothing to base this on versus the tick currently. I have to drive it a bit. And we'll come back with that.